Okay, so it seemed like we could start with one place. It seemed like you agreed with Demon Mama's position, but not the way that she put it, not to the extent, but that you agreed with Demon Mama's position in that we shouldn't have mandatory schooling. Is that correct?
Um, no, I don't know what anyone meant by anything.
Okay.
The framing. So I feel like no one established what they actually meant.
Okay.
And we're having different conversations.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm about decriminalizing,
Mm-hmm.
like not having cops show up to and putting parents in jail and stuff for truancy.
Okay, so are you for or against mandatory schooling?
I honestly don't know what mandatory means.
Okay, at the penalty of, let's say, a fine to the parents, the kids have to go to some form of education, mean whether it be homeschooling, meeting a certain curriculum, like a criteria, like should displaying an understanding of mathematics, history, science, whatever we decide to be the curriculum, tutoring and like doing it that way, a online schooling, or
Yeah,
yeah, okay, so like all
yeah,
of
yeah,
those.
all of that.
So yeah, mandatory that you do some one of those,
Yeah,
otherwise your parents could get fined.
yeah. I mean, like whatever kind of. I think it like fine. Yeah. I just think that it's more like, uh, we should work towards having the resources so that there aren't any issues, like there aren't extenuating circumstances that might keep people from being able to have make sure their kid is in school
Do you
and
think
so
that
on,
there's a valid excuse? Yeah. Do you think that there's a valid excuse to not go to any form of schooling, like whether it be online schooling, homeschooling, even like boarding school? If we find out it's like better to keep the kid on, like away from their parents or what have you, because maybe their parents are abusive, so maybe they go to a boarding school system or what have you, and we could subsidize that. Do you think that any of like that alternative is like within the wide scope of what we consider to be the educational alternatives? Do you think that there's like any kid that probably wouldn't fit in any of those things?
I mean, uh if you can do it remotely, if you like unless there's something extreme like they're being treated for a horrible disease in the hospital and something like that, if they're capable
Well,
of
I mean, I
actually
think
going in
that's,
and learning
yeah, just to
or
be
like
clear, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure for medical reasons they don't do that even right now. Like, they aren't going to
right.
walk up to your kid who has cancer and be like, you can't go through chemo because you have to hit these educational criteria.
Yeah, I'm going to a more I guess extreme end of the spectrum because I'm just thinking about it in an all-encompassing kind of way. I don't know. I feel like my issue with the conversations that took place with Hans is I felt like, and I could be wrong because I didn't see the origin of it on Twitter. It seemed like his framing was that other people were against like they thought that you should let your kids just choose if they feel like getting educated or not and just stay at home and like jump on the bed and eat ice cream, like that's what it the framing seemed like, and not engaging on like a deeper level beyond that than just like kids deciding what they want to do.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the
I that's how it felt to me. I can't
well,
say
I mean, do you
that's
dis?
how it's
Yeah,
going.
I mean, but do you disagree that if kids aren't given like very, very like essentially pushed to go to school, they won't?
Yeah. Yeah, there has to be like um
Give me one sec.
there has to be like consequences.
Can you give me 1 second?
Sure.
All right. Dan, thank you for the the raid. Dude, I can't believe what you are watching on your stream, dude. Like, that is wild, dude. That is fucking wild, dude. All right, going over and take a look at Dan's shit if you haven't already. He's a funny guy. Okay, we're having a conversation with Aiko about separate topics to what we were just talking about. Um, and so yeah, we're having a conversation about the mandatory schooling right now. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Aiko?
I oh, I'm sorry. I think that you might have been about to ask me something. The last thing I remember is me saying that I felt like Hans's framing was
Sure.
very like all or nothing, and there were certain parts of it.
Well, so yeah, where he was getting to all or nothing was the point that like if you do not make schooling mandatory, there are going to be a lot of kids who don't end up with an education.
Right. But that's the thing, I felt like mandatory. I didn't know if that specifically referred to some kind of policy versus another thing. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't super clear on what mandatory meant to each person. Like if mandatory some people I saw said like mandatory meaning you had to like go to a school um like actually physically go there. Some people disagreed. I mean, I know that you basically have to you're all
Yeah,
you
so the Booksmart's kind of talked about that shit, but then I think backed off of the
oh,
position
I
because a
didn't
lot of
finish
people
that.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, there may have been some confusion about whether or
Mhm.
not what he meant was mandatory schooling, physically going to a school, or mandatory education. And he clarified that it was mandatory education. They just need to meet a specific educational criteria.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's I felt like what took place in during the conversations um wasn't I don't I want to
Sure.
be fair and I don't want to put things on him that I can't know. Um like for instance asking if we made school perfect, like perfect school, would that change Demon Mama's mind? I didn't
Oh,
watch
we're
her
gonna
video.
loop.
I don't really know what her position is completely. Um, I mean, so I felt like it didn't get a chance to go there.
Yeah. So what I primarily care about is instead of like a debate review would be a do you agree with the position of mandatory education?
I mean, like I don't think that you should be able to not have any sorry, I'm just cropping you so there's
Yeah,
not like
the infinite
conception. It
thing.
was
Yeah.
freaking me out. Um, like for instance, as long as it's like so it varies. I don't know if it's state to state, but I know that in school there were at least some of my schools that I went to because I went to some like terrible evangelical schools. I was homeschooled and I went to public school eventually when I was 15 and like so for sophomore into graduation. So I think there was a thing where if you missed the first period, you were like absent for the entire day. So yeah, I mean, in general, I think that the requirements are all good. I'm just concerned about like the effects of um the ways that we enforce it. That's really it.
Okay, so all right. So what about the police? Are you okay with like fines that ultimately would obviously be upheld by the police?
No. No.
Okay. So can you give me an example of a penalty that you would be okay with?
Um I mean, honestly, I'm not really sure because I don't know how it affects the larger picture. I'm I don't know about it. So I don't really make prescriptions on things that I'm not educated enough
So you don't have a
to.
position on mandatory education right now because you don't know how it would look when it comes to actual implement.
Yeah, like I mean, I I think that regardless of the situation, there needs to be accessibility, right? And whatever kind of underlying issues, if a kid isn't ending up at school, then I think it's more like um, if there are resources so that no matter the situation that the kid is in, they still have access to education, then I think you would be able to be harsher
So
versus
yeah,
if there weren't.
let's
Yeah.
control for this. Let's talk about the specific hypothetical where a mandatory education and stuff like that is any form of education, getting educated at all. Would you be okay with police enforcing it? Or is there no circumstance where you believe that the police could enforce like a fine?
I mean, I think that you should probably get checked out by a social worker first, right? Like, and dealt with, try to deal with it like that and see
Okay.
what's going on. And then if it gets to a point where you find out that this kid is, being neglected, or if there's some sort of behavioral
Ooh.
issue, that they can get help.
Cherry! Thank you for the raid.
So, I mean, I think that the overall, I think that it should be, I guess, focused on um, in both incentives and making sure that we have resources. I don't think that like it's a thing where we have to bring in the police
Well,
unless there's a violent situation.
okay, what if people just. So the reason why I say police is
Mhm.
like, I'm not hard stuck on police, but like, ultimately, all laws are upheld by violence in the state. And so, like, if you refuse to pay the fine, you would eventually have to get the police involved.
I mean, not necessarily. It's not like the police will show up in every instance if you owe fines. Like, people will build up, not not traffic tickets, but like, mm, I actually I don't know which fines become,
Oh, no.
um sorry, I'm like,
I moved
that
my
they're
camera,
also
so.
bringing up. Okay.
Hold up, I'm moving it back. I forgot how that works. Alright, alright. Okay, so. Um. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, fines are ultimately held by the police, like right now.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, I would think that I would want, it to be dealt with by, like, a social worker or
Well, it could
something.
be dealt with a social worker at first. I'm just asking you, if somebody doesn't pay a fine, what do you do?
I mean, do we enforce all fines with police? Because I feel like, I
I'm
mean,
pretty.
I
As
don't
long as we
think,
care about the fine, yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. Yes.
I don't really, I don't, I don't like the, unless I'm open to, more information and someone that actually knows things telling me that,
Hmm.
I'm wrong for whatever reason. But I think that, fines, uh, punish people that are in poverty, and if people, the people who are can afford to pay fines easily just do. Does that make sense? That's
Okay.
where I'm at.
Well, I mean, you could just
I
argue
could
for
be wrong.
maybe a income or wealth adjusted fine. That's something that you want.
I mean, I guess so. I I just I guess it depends on what is going on exactly. Like
the
why this is
the the
happening.
the parent isn't, or the kid isn't going to school, and the parent presumably can do something about that. And if the parent cannot do something about getting that kid to school, that kid then should go to some kind of boarding school or what have you, because education is so important that like you can't just have your kid not going to school. That's the point.
Are you thinking in terms of like the age range that's currently enforced? Like what is it? First to uh the end of sophomore, so like you can drop out as a junior in high school, I
Yeah,
think.
sure, we could run with that if you want to or not. It's the question is just about whether or not you accept it as a possibility, like using mandatory, like forcing parents to get their kids to school.
I think it depends on where they're at
Can you give me a good
in
can you give me a
school.
good reason where when in which like it would be okay to not have a kid like go to school?
Um well, I mean, going to school versus like do you also mean like any other form of
Yes,
getting them
education. So
education?
yeah, like
And
try and stick with that. That's what
like
usually people are
homeschool
talking. Right.
counts and
Yeah.
right. Um I mean, I think that if in any case that a parent can't actually do that, I guess I feel like it should be dealt with, um, yeah, like I said, with like resources, and then if all like resources are um exhausted, then I mean it kind of it kind of depends. Like for me, when I was homeschooled, it was because I I've been agoraphobic my whole life, so I tried to go to school, and it did not happen. And if my mom hadn't been a
Right.
stay-at-home mom at that point,
So this is why I'm
I,
asking you, is there any situation that you can think of where not educating a child is like justified?
no, not if it's in like I mean, the stuff that you actually need to know.
Right.
You know
Okay.
what I
So
mean?
it
Yeah.
yeah. So if that's the case, right? Why wouldn't we make it mandatory?
No, I mean, like if mandatory means everything that we're talking about, like I said initially, I just care about like the making sure that people aren't screwed because of circumstances where they don't have resources, right? That's it.
Yeah, so if people don't have resources to send their kid to school or to get them educated at all, do you think that that the state should intervene and get that kid educated?
I mean, yeah, like through like like I said, social workers would know. Actually don't
Okay, so
know.
let's say that there
Like
was a parent
yeah.
that was preventing any social worker for like trying to take their kid to boarding school because let's say that the parent has no resources to allow that kid to be able to get to school, right? And they don't
Is
want
that
them
what
to
they
like.
do?
So no, I'm just giving you a hypothetical, right? And so that's happening. The parent doesn't want the kid to like leave, right? Um, what do you do then?
I mean, is there a reason that they are taken to boarding school? Like, or is it
Sure,
like
like
a
boarding school, let's
for
say, because the parents are also abusive. So boarding school would make more
well
sense
then
that way they don't
if
get.
they're abusive, then you should probably get them out of the abusive situation,
Would you say
however it's handled.
would you say not sending your kid to education or getting your kid educated is a form of child abuse?
Yeah, but I think, if you don't it depends on why. Like I guess I need to be able to imagine a case where there would be a parent that wasn't abusive, wasn't like had available resources. I just
Okay, so
um
what about a parent that's just like too busy at work, doesn't have the time in the early morning to make sure their kid gets to school?
and their kid doesn't want to go to school, like
The
they
kid, yeah, well, I
leave,
mean, no, a lot of kids don't want to go to school, so since their parent
like
isn't
they
there to
won't
make them,
stay.
they just sit there in their house. Yeah.
Like the kid will they'll drop them off at school and the kid will just
No, no,
like
no,
peace out.
not drop them off at school. Like the parent leaves at like 4 a.m. for one of their like three jobs, so they don't have the time to be able to get their kid out the door to go to school. So they rely on their kid to actually have the autonomy to go to school, right?
I think that if they are if they're that young, then that's not a good situation. Like, I feel like that's I
Right.
mean,
And
yeah, I feel like
so
there's something extra going on usually. Like, I think that in that case, there should be, uh, transportation available
there is
from the
transportation. The
school.
kid just doesn't want to go to school. That's what I'm saying to you. The kid will, on their own, not go to school, but the parent has no ability to force the kid to go to school because they're at work.
Well, then probably someone should take them to school regardless. If
Right.
the
So
parent
the
is just
state should what?
unable to
Right.
get them
So
there because they don't have the help, they don't have the ability because like you said, they are in poverty, they do need to work that many jobs, and they don't have any support from family or friends. Um,
what do you think the state should do? Like, what is the solution to that problem?
um, what school like, you mean, like, taking them to, like, a regular kinda school? Just
Yeah.
like, an in-person school?
Yeah. Or what have you? Yeah.
Um, like like I said, I think that so it's also, like, a behavioral thing where the kid will just refuse to actually go
Yeah.
regardless of what
Yeah.
the
Because they want to
parent
play
says,
video games. Yeah. Because they want to play
and
video
they're just
games.
like, "Whatever."
Yeah. I mean, I did this. Yes.
Yeah. Um, I I guess if it got past the point of, um having a social worker check out the situation, um, if the kid just, like, will not go
Yep.
just because they wanna, like, hang out,
Yep.
and fuck off at home, um, and it doesn't like, they won't go with the bus that parks in front of their house or apartment or
Yep.
whatever, like, the bus shows up and is right there, and they're like, "Nope."
Yep.
Um, yeah, then that kid, like, needs, help beyond like, I don't think that they should be taken away, but there definitely has to be, like, some kind of
Right. What about a fine to the parent?
I mean, I don't necessarily see how that would,
Sure.
um m I don't I mean, like, it would kind of just make things harder for the
Sure.
parent if the kid really doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
regardless of all the people that try to intervene, the social worker,
Sure.
etcetera.
So the social worker shows up before the fine, right? And what have
Mhm.
you. What I'm saying is, what is your alternative? Because I might say something like police could get involved and be able to show up and be like, hey, you know what? You need to get to school. And maybe they're going to take them more seriously.
Oh, like, just a more intimidating police
Yeah, more
kind of presence?
intimidating presence. Yeah, why not?
I mean, that's kinda like a scared straight type of thing.
I
I
mean,
mean, but
maybe.
also
The
I mean,
kid
can
needs to
he
go to school first and foremost. They need to be able to know how to read. So if a cop gets them to understand how to read, then why do I care?
is that what do you think or I guess, what do you think, like, I guess, the bar for, being educated enough is? Like, what would
I
you
mean,
say?
I don't know, maybe like algebra at the like, I'm not going to be able to give
I
you
didn't
like
take
everything. Like,
algebra.
I mean, okay,
I
maybe
mean,
that
like,
should
I
be the
just,
bar. I don't know, but
um
it should at the very least be a measure of understanding about like some of the things that I think that you need. So like, um, bare minimum would. I'd honestly probably say at the very bare minimum, geometry, all the way up to geometry. Um, very bare
well, I
minimum.
would be absolutely fucked.
Sure, bare
I
minimum
mean,
should be like geometry and like, uh, I I mean, I don't know. That'd probably be more of a question for like educators themselves, but it's definitely not going to be like ABCs.
Well, no, no, absolutely not. I agree, like, um, you know, uh, get like beyond just being able to read, but like reading comprehension and uh the things that you need in order to function as an adult, like to that degree. Like
Sure.
I didn't get to algebra because I had to do like a 6 weeks of hardcore, like just blasting through
Okay,
like
so
history
let's
because
maybe
I
do this a different way because we could probably resolve
sure.
this pretty quick. Do you think I am wrong for stating that I'm okay with saying that the police could intervene in the case of maybe a fine or in the case of like I don't know, like somebody not wanting to go to school or what have you. Do you think I'm okay with saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an absolute alternative. I didn't even think we were going to be talking about this specifically, so I didn't like
Did
prepare.
I not? Maybe I didn't mention that. Maybe it was just the neo pronoun shit.